Before a company changes a price, launches a product, redesigns a store, or enters a new market, it wants to know how consumers may respond. Traditionally, answering that question takes time, recruitment, budget, and a limited number of scenarios. Aegis SimForge creates a synthetic wind tunnel, a governed environment where decisions can be rehearsed before they enter the real world. This is not about replacing human research or claiming certainty. It is about testing hypotheses, challenging assumptions, and examining possible consequences before an organization commits real money, reputation, and resources. Interviews, ethnography, focus groups, shopper studies, transaction data, and market observation remain essential. But physical research is constrained by time, cost, sample size, respondent access, and the number of variations that can be tested. Synthetic simulation expands the range of questions we can examine before expensive fieldwork begins. It can compare propositions, prices, messages, competitor reactions, and extreme scenarios rapidly. The goal is not less research. The goal is better targeted research. A traditional persona is usually a description. It may include age, income, location, and stated preferences. A synthetic consumer is different. A persona is a description. A synthetic consumer is a contextual decision model. It can reflect motivations, habits, beliefs, financial constraints, cultural influences, contradictions, and a specific shopper mission. Most importantly, it is placed inside a decision context. The same person may behave differently when shopping for convenience, indulgence, gifting, family needs, or value. So we do not ask only, what does this consumer say? We ask, what changes the decision? Synthetic population should not be generated at random. We follow 6 public principles. First, define the business decision. Second, define the market and environment. Third, ground the population in the best available evidence. Fourth, introduce genuine heterogeneity and disagreement. Fifth, expose the population to changing counterfactual scenarios. Finally, compare the results. The proprietary implementation remains confidential, but the governing logic is clear. Define, ground, vary, test, compare, and validate. Aegis SimForge's earlier synthetic focus group capability now operates inside the broader synthetic wind tunnel. It can support concept testing, message testing, segment reactions, latent sentiment, ethnographic intent, anthropological interpretation, trust analysis, and objection discovery. The advantage is that the same question can be rerun under changing conditions. What happens when the price is revealed? What happens when trust declines? What happens when a competitor responds? What happens when availability changes? The wind tunnel turns a static research question into a dynamic rehearsal. Markets are not collections of isolated individuals. They are interacting systems. Consumers influence consumers. Narratives spread. Trust compounds or erodes. Competitors react. Retail conditions change. Social proof can strengthen or weaken demand. This means the first response is rarely the final outcome. Population simulation allows us to ask, what happens after people interact? Which signals spread? Which groups amplify them? What second-order effects emerge? That is the difference between modeling an opinion and rehearsing a market. Stated preference does not always become basket behavior. A shopper may enter with an urgent replenishment mission, an indulgence mission, a gifting mission, a family mission, or a value-seeking mission. But the journey can be disrupted. The preferred product may be unavailable, the price may be too high, the pack may not fit the occasion, a promotion may redirect the shopper, a competitor may provide an easier substitute. The result may be substitution, a reduced basket, delayed purchase, or abandonment. Mission-to-basket analysis maps the gap between what consumers say they want and what the environment enables them to do. The commercial and store decision twin is a structured rehearsal environment reflecting important retail conditions. It can represent store formats, shopper missions, segments, assortment, pack sizes, prices, promotions, shelf conditions, competitor products, availability, and messaging. We can then alter those conditions and observe how different synthetic shoppers may respond. But this is a decision twin, not a claim of perfect physical replication. Without suitable calibration data, we do not claim exact sales, conversion, basket value, elasticity, or promotional return. Those claims require real behavioral and commercial evidence. Aegis SimForge operates across 3 levels of data maturity. Tier 1 is governed zero data rehearsal. It generates hypotheses, exposes assumptions, identifies sensitive variables, and prioritizes what evidence should be collected next. It does not manufacture ground truth. Tier 2 is proxy-calibrated simulation using market evidence, category benchmarks, competitor information, research, and historical directional data. Tier 3 is ground truth calibrated simulation using proprietary organizational evidence such as POS, baskets, CRM, loyalty, promotions, distribution, and BI. We can begin with a question. We become more precise as evidence is introduced. Accuracy must be discussed carefully. In published research involving more than 1,000 real participants, interview-grounded generative agents reproduce general social survey responses at approximately 85% of the participants' own 2-week self-consistency benchmark. That does not mean every synthetic consumer prediction is universally 85% accurate. It is a research benchmark, and performance varied by task. In practice, accuracy must be evaluated in context. We examine directional accuracy, stability, disagreement, sensitivity, calibration, bias, drift, and uncertainty. We do not ask only whether the AI sounds human. We ask whether the result is testable, stable, evidence-linked, and comparable with reality. Let us address the most common objection directly. Is this simply a language model wrapped in elaborate prompts? No. A basic wrapper follows a simple path. Prompt, model, answer. A simulation architecture constructs populations, defines environments, changes variables, runs repeated scenarios, tests counterfactuals, measures disagreement, challenges assumptions, calibrates against evidence, and reports uncertainty. A chatbot may produce a persuasive paragraph. A simulation platform must show what changed, what drove the result, where groups disagreed, whether the finding remained stable, and what should be validated next. The language model is one component. It is not the system. Average scores often hide the most important risks. A concept may look positive overall, while concealing strong resistance in one valuable group. A strategy may appear stable while depending on one fragile assumption. A known risk may be visible but systematically underweighted. We use competing interpretations, counterfactual testing, adversarial challenge, and human governance to surface blind spots, hidden resistance, grey rhinos, and extreme event vulnerabilities. We do not claim to predict every black swan. We help organizations discover where their strategy is fragile when the unexpected occurs. And we do not claim to eliminate hallucination completely. We aim to reduce unsupported conclusions and make uncertainty visible. Because many engagements are confidential, we do not disclose client identities or protected commercial results. But we can describe the types of directional signals synthetic rehearsal can surface. An overlooked segment, hidden resistance behind a positive average. A shop omission that fails to become the expected basket. A pricing or positioning risk. A visible grey rhino that management has underweighted. These are not universal guarantees. They are signals showing where assumptions deserve challenge and where human research should be concentrated. Our position is simple: direction first, calibration next, stronger ground truth over time. We do not replace market researchers, BI teams, data scientists, or ground truth evidence. We amplify them through strategic simulation and decision rehearsal. Market researchers contribute human evidence, cultural interpretation, methodology, and validation. BI teams contribute commercial metrics, behavioral patterns, and organizational ground truth. Aegis SimForge gives those teams an environment in which they can test more alternatives, expose assumptions, identify segment disagreement, and focus fieldwork where it creates the most value. We do not compete with ground truth. We give ground truth somewhere to work harder. Aegis SimForge does not promise certainty. We provide a disciplined environment for confronting uncertainty before uncertainty becomes expensive. So do not begin by asking whether synthetic consumers can replace your existing research. Ask a more valuable question. What important decision could your organization rehearse before committing real money, reputation, and resources? It may be a pricing decision, a product launch, a store redesign, a message, a pack change, a market entry strategy, or a visible risk that has not yet been fully confronted. Bring us the decision. We can begin by defining the question, making assumptions visible, constructing alternative scenarios, and identifying the evidence required to move from directional insight toward calibrated confidence. Submit a business question to Aegis SimForge. Let us place it inside the synthetic wind tunnel.